My next guest is the Director of Corporate Partnerships with Ottawa Sports Entertainment Group. Please welcome Matt Bennett. Hey, Matt. Thank you for doing this.
Yeah, no problem, man.
Matt, how would you summarize or analyze your career in the sport industry to date?
Yeah, great question. I think, I guess I would summarize it as being pretty fortunate. I've been doing it now for, I guess since '06 is kind of when I jumped in at the Sens with an internship, and been really lucky to work for a couple really great organizations and take on, numerous roles, in both those, especially my, early days at the Sens. Really kind of worked through 4 or 5 different roles over a 9-year span, and got to work with some incredible people, got to work for some really great mentors that I still consider mentors to date. And then making the jump to OSEG was pretty, again, timing sometimes is everything, and real fortunate to get in there kind of in year 2 of operation, and help kind of build things up and get ready for Grey Cup Festival back in 2017. And obviously with everything going on in the world right now, it's a bit of a different beast right now. But no, I still consider myself fortunate and really lucky to have had the roles I've had, and work with the people that I've worked with.
Matt, your organization ran a sport business webinar recently. How did you find the process planning, and what were your key takeaways? And I wanted to ask you this because we tend to ask participants for their feedback or reaction, but I wanted to get your feedback as a panelist.
Yeah, I mean, you know what? Really great initiative led by Caitlin Mulligan and Mish Lisler from our team. We're trying to find ways to stay top of, like everybody right now, right? Trying to find ways to stay top of mind, stay relevant. We think, as a company, we have a responsibility, to educate, especially students and recent grads and upper year students who are looking to break into the industry. It's, the more we can educate them on how to be ready for the industry, it's only going to serve us better, or other organizations around the industry. So was really lucky to be a part of it, and was happy that Mitch reached out and asked, and sat on a panel with Chris Atack, who has been a longtime colleague of mine both at OSEG and the Sens, who's don't tell him this, but he's usually the smartest guy in the room. And Steph Spruceton, one of our VPs at OSEG, who's an absolute incredible person, great leader at our company. So it was awesome. It was really great. And, I think, key takeaways for me is I think there's a need. I think there's, there were so many questions in advance, some really great questions. We could have ran that thing for 2 or 3 hours, I think, and had some really engaging dialogue. So, the biggest takeaway for me is that there's a need there for, whether it's, our organization to keep doing it, or others. I know, the Management Council has been running, they were running some webinars this week with some pretty awesome panelists. And, I think that's great. I think the more content we can all consume right now, makes us all better. So, I think the the plan, I don't want to give anything away, but I think now that's kind of going to become a staple. I think every 3-4 weeks you'll see a webinar now come out, kind of hosted by OSEG with some different guests, and but again, just to kind of spark the conversation on different aspects of working in sport and the sport industry and the trends that we're going through right now. So yeah, no, I'm excited to see where Mitch and the gang take it.
Matt, I read the LinkedIn post about the seminar, and there was a lot of positive comments about it, and it was really cool to see.
Yeah, no, it was great. I think everybody liked it. Like we didn't really know what to expect, but yeah, I think it was great. Lots of questions after, lots of great follow up. I think when you see things like that, it's exciting, because that the kind of the next wave of young leaders like yourself kind of coming into the industry, that things will be in good hands. See people like that kind of coming out and asking those questions.
Matt, what has your transition been working remotely during this pandemic and working with coworkers virtually?
It's been okay. As you can see, as I work from kind of our the playroom in our house with a couple young kids here, slash corner office. Good news is I've got a big window for the first time in my career, so that's a bonus. It's been I think we've kind of found our sweet spot now. To be honest, I think it's what are we going on now? Week 14, I think, of doing this. So I think at first everybody was kind of feeling their way through it, myself included, just trying to find what works. I mean, in my role, I'm pretty lucky. The last few years, I can really work from anywhere, right? You go where the clients are, and you can set up from really anywhere. I hadn't really, I don't know about you, but like this whole Zoom craze or function, I'd never really used it before. So the video call, that's new to me. So I think everybody's starting to adjust to it. But yeah, working remotely for me has always been part of the role. Whether it's a coffee shop, a train, hotel lobby, like you can kind of set up from anywhere. So that's been good. I think OSEG as a whole, one of the key takeaways coming out of this whole thing, I think, is what is our office, what does our workforce look like on the other side of this, and I think a lot of what we're doing right now will stick with us. I obviously, with especially here locally in Ottawa with Shopify and others, kind of saying office space is dead and looking to move their entire workforce permanently to work from home. There's been lots of discussion on our end about where do we kind of land on that. I don't think you'll ever see, at least I'll say, go 100% virtual, but I also don't think you'll see us all come back to the office 100% of the time. I think that'll be something in the past. So I think we'll see a hybrid model, which I think is exciting for a lot of people. I think people again have found their groove, and we've kind of figured it out like you usually do, right? You got to adapt, and everybody's been really flexible. Whether it's internal stakeholders, clients, everybody's in the same boat. So I think that's been really great, and I think you'll see a lot more of that. I think specifically here at OSEC, you're going to see a lot of that. People working from wherever they can, wherever they're comfortable, and still contributing. I think that's the biggest thing for anybody that was maybe more, have more of an old school train of thought about having to be in the office. I think that has shifted, and I think there's more. People are more open to having more of a virtual office setup.
On your point, Matt, about Zoom, I never heard about Zoom until like January or February. Never heard of it before, and I think many were in the same boat. And as you mentioned about office space,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
one of the conversations that I've had with friends is um, it's a really interesting topic to see which organizations will go back into the office and which won't, especially for small businesses because they've been affected by this pandemic. So that's a very
Mhm.
interesting
Yeah.
conversation right now.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Yeah, and I'm curious to see where it goes. Whether small business especially, obviously needs to be real nimble, but even large corporations, I think they're going to have to be just as nimble and just as flexible as we get back to the other side of it.
Matt, transitioning more into your day to day, what are corporate partnerships in the sport industry?
Core partnerships are relationships, strategic relationships that come together between a property like OSEG, or a team, an event, and different brands, and really with the end goal of helping amplify that brand message. And it takes many different forms, right? We work with partners who are focused solely on amplifying their brand, getting their brand message out, engaging, um, with our fans to widen the awareness around their brand. We work with a lot of people who might be trying to drive traffic back to a retail location. Sometimes sponsorship really is it varies, and for us, in our field, it's all about taking what those objectives are of a client, really drilling in early on to what their objectives are, what are their strategic priorities, and then coming up with a vehicle to help achieve those. And obviously, there's an emotional connection in sport that you don't get in many other forms of media, and that I think is why it's been become so prevalent. And really, one of the biggest parts of the sport industry it is corporate partnerships because of that emotional connection and the ability to really enhance and augment that those objectives and strategic priorities for brands through sport, and especially nowadays too. This whole social digital revolution in the last few years, now not to go outside of the stadium or outside of the arena and still speak to fan bases. We've got fans across the country. You always see people posting pictures of the Red Black swag across around the world, and we're kind of in the grand scheme of things, we're a bit of a small fish. You look at and I've been to conferences and seen kind of the head of brand from big time teams like FC Barcelona and some of these other worldwide brands, and you think about the reach they have for partners, it's pretty extraordinary. And so yeah, I mean, for us, it's all about kind of putting those partnerships together, putting those programs together, and making sure that we're tying it back to always tying it back to and objectives and their priorities.
Matt, in your opinion, what does the future hold with corporate partnerships in the sport industry? And is there any trends that you foresee into the future with the effects of the pandemic?
Yeah, we're kind of going through it now, Vince. I mean, I, and we talk about this every day, right? Right now, myself and my team and even colleagues across the CFL, it's we're all finding unique ways and new ways to help keep our partnerships relevant. Let's I think when you look at kind of the likelihood of having full stadiums in 2020 is not great. So how do we pivot from traditional in stadium assets like LED signage or intermission activations or halftime activations, handouts on a concourse, like those lead gen programs. How can we pivot from there into something new? And a lot of what I'm seeing and hearing right now is a pivot to obviously social and digital platforms. Diving a little deeper, there's some really great software companies out there that can help amplify and put some meat on the bones for some social and digital, whether it's gamification or just different activations on platforms. Seeing a lot of that. A lot of these virtual, everything's virtual now, right? We were supposed to have our home opener for the Red Blacks last Friday. So we turned into a virtual home opener. Still had had the coach on, had some players, peer team, all virtually tied in. Season ticket holders, partners. TD, who's our naming rights partner, incredible partner for us. They traditionally have always been the presenting partner of our home opener. So obviously, natural fit for them to present our virtual home opener. So looking for opportunities like that. I also think CSR strategy for companies, that what they're doing in the community is really coming top of mind. A lot of the webinars I've been sitting on, run by Sponsorship X and IMI and a lot of these consulting groups, the data they're seeing both from, or I guess from, agencies, properties, and brands is this heightened awareness on the community, on corporate social responsibility, and what are brands doing in the community. So, our group at OSEG is trying to find those opportunities. How can we still show value to partners? We don't have those traditional assets to do so. But I think you're still going to see it's you, the properties that do it well are the ones that will innovate, right? Like anything else. So that's what we're being challenged with, and myself and my team. That's kind of how we're challenging each other, is how can we be as innovative as possible as we kind of go through this pandemic and even get on the other side of it.
Matt, what is the process in terms of innovation with your team, or not to get too much into it, but with other sponsors and whatnot?
Great question. I think what, even before the pandemic, right? I think that's always been the challenge. Whether we're meeting a new potential partner for the first time, or we're working with Telus or TD or Labatt, one of our longstanding founding partners. The object the objective on our side remains the same, which is you always want to be innovating. We don't just roll over assets in a program year over year just because they're in the partnership agreement, right? Every year we take stock at the end of the year, and we'll have obviously we're in constant communication with our partners on things that are working, things that we're seeing in the industry that we think they would like. It's a fluid process. They'll come to us with some great ideas, things they're rolling out across the country, and we can see how we can incorporate that. Again, I've said it before. I'm extremely lucky at OSEG to work with some of the brightest people and most innovative people in the industry, and not just in our partnership team. When we bring on a new partner, some of my favorite meetings are kind of the whiteboard session where we essentially put the brand up on the board. There are kind of 3 or 4 priorities, and then we'll bring in a cross section of folks from across the industry. Our digital team, people from our marketing group, our game day producer, and ticket sales guys, like just a cross section of folks. Our account servicing group, and just to talk through how can we be creative, how can we be innovative in delivering and putting together a partnership. And so that process is really great. And I think even though we can't be together in the same room, we're still having those meetings and those discussions now. And obviously there's been a focus on webinars and external content for sure. So I think it's just absorbing as much external content as you can, whether that's leveraging LinkedIn, Sports Business Journal, Strategy Online magazine, webinars, even just I've found even just tapping into your network across the industry, right? Just with catch-up calls and things like that. What are people seeing? What are they hearing? And then how can we incorporate some of those trends into our everyday.
Matt, you made a great point about networking, and this show has kind of allowed me to reconnect with individuals in the sport industry and go deeper into my network to learn more about the industry and advice for the future. And the relationships that you mentioned are so important because sometimes you need a little bit of help with guidance or mentorship or whatever the case may be. And without those relationships, it's really hard to pursue a career in any sector, not just the sport industry.
I mean, it's I think the expectation, if you're passionate about it, it's like anything else, right? Whether it's working in sport, working in healthcare, whatever industry you're passionate about, if that's really at your core and part of your why, is tied to working in sport, then you're going to get so much out of it. I think it's proportionate to what you put into it, like anything else. But I think, especially right now, and I know, one side of the corner, one way to look at kind of our current state is daunting, right? For yourself and recent grads, like it can be, daunting, kind of just the state, obviously, lots of hiring freezes, that sort of thing. But I think the opportunity and the positive outlook, in my opinion, on where we're at right now is once the dust settles, organizations are going to be staffing up, and those that are breaking the industry right now are going to do so at a time where everything is on the table, like we were just talking about, right? Like the innovative piece. So if you're a creative thinker, you like to think outside the box, you're comfortable operating in the gray. That those sort of people, I think, are going to thrive, and I think you're going to get so much out of the industry and so much learning out of it. Like anything else, right? And I mean, you've heard the story probably, from every guest speaker you've ever had at at the top, right? Like it's long hours, yes, it's you got to pay your dues, all of that stuff. But I would argue that's in any industry, right? You gotta pay your dues, and the more you take on, the more you learn. So I think the expectation is a positive one. I really do. I know maybe in the short term, we talked about it right on the webinar weeks ago. Yeah, it's hard right now. Like organizations are in a bit of a, they're in a business recovery mode. They're waiting and seeing, but there's still, there are still opportunities out there, right? Yeah, the Canada Games are hiring up. I saw a couple more roles they posted. There's still major events. There's other things coming down the pipe that I think for aspiring, whether it's you want to work in events or marketing, like there's a ton of stuff I think at people's fingertips. It just may be a little delayed right now. So uh, I think the future is bright for sure. Sport is too much of a unifier in our society to go away. So we're going to need smart individuals to help deliver.
Talking about the job market, Matt, I find maybe that digital jobs for sport content, there's going to be a lot of them coming out of this because I think content has forever changed since this pandemic, especially for platforms such as TikTok and Instagram and all these social media platforms.
Yeah, I agree. I think again the one got people like yourself, right? Like they're kind of thinking outside the box. This is, and that was kind of what I was alluding to when I name dropped you in our webinar a couple weeks ago, because it's a creative way, um, to differentiate yourself, right? And so now you go into your next job interview and people ask you, well, so what did you do during the pandemic? Which is the question every interviewer is going to ask, right? Whether it's small talk or whether they're, getting to the point. And it's, I think sometimes the most effective interviews, it's very much a show me, don't tell me. Right? You can rhyme off, anybody can look at your resume or you can rhyme off your resume, but it's show me what you've done. And I think things like this, and other people that are, continually creating content, um, are those that can really show an interview what they've been working on. And to your, we talked a little bit about it. It's easier now than it ever has been, right? To actually deliver it, the logistics of it, the tech of it. It's I think just finding that relevant voice or relevant topic to bring people in. But yeah, I think from the operation side of it, it's never been easier to deliver that.
Mhm. Especially with so many resources, Matt, that are available now compared to maybe years ago. Because you can look on, uh, for example, Apple, and you see a ton of these, editing apps or graphical
Yeah,
designs and whatnot, right?
yeah. Yeah, no, it's that's what I mean. It's obviously I'm for sure gonna date myself, but like that just didn't exist when I was coming out of school, right? Like that, there's no way. Like we didn't even have LinkedIn, right? Like I was saying this, I was doing a coffee chat with Windsor alum earlier this week, where I went to grad school, and that was kind of my advice, right? And I think you've heard me talk about it before, is just leveraging the power of LinkedIn and how easy it is to connect with people now really across the world. Or, we're looking at the kind of the sport management sandbox. You can connect with any CEO, any marketing coordinator, anyone you want with a simple message and a simple click of a button. I think that it can be daunting for sure, but let me tell you, it's way easier than it was, back when I was graduating from Brock, and all you have was a phone book and hopefully a connection to reach out to via phone. So
How would you compare when you graduated out of school to now? How would you compare the experiences to get into the sport industry?
yeah, great question. I think there's a lot of similarities when I think back to kind of my cohort that I graduated with, and those, it's a lot of similarities, right? Like there's some pillar industries, there's some pillar brands, pillar organizations. I think sales, marketing. There's some event, working game days. There's still kind of that front facing or kind of, I guess, the jobs that get the most kind of the most coverage, from a student perspective, right? When you look at kind of the list of guest speakers and who come in and talk, it's usually people in those roles. But what I think has changed is, I mean, a few things. Obviously, the tech piece, is massive. That's opened up, so many different avenues. Social media roles, content creators, all that entire arm of a company or a franchise that just didn't exist. All those years ago when I graduated. So that I think there's more opportunity now for sure. I think again, and also I would say specifically to Brock, and this is just a function of the program being more mature now, is the alumni network now is 10 times stronger than what it was when I graduated. We were lucky to have a few people that would always come back willing to engage and help out, but Dr. Shannon Kerwin and others that have created this mentorship program, I think has been a really incredible initiative for Brock. And I think other schools now have kind of followed suit, which is great. So it allows, that connectivity between students and alumni, and therefore the industry, I think is stronger than ever. So I think, what do you think? Do you think, that's have you seen that growth? Obviously, like even in your time at Brock, was that something that you'd seen evolve over your time there?
Oh, absolutely. I think I've said this before, but the reason I went to sport management at Brock was because of the alumni. I looked at the alumni and I saw how great it was, and I thought, okay, this is what I really want to be a part of. And then making the decision to get more involved, to have alumni such as yourself to be resources to gain information about, I said this, I think I said this on the Shima uh, kind of live Instagram thing, that I really wanted student council to turn into a business. I didn't want it just to be a club. So how did you do that? Well, my first step was to talk
Right.
with business professionals and industry professionals to gain that knowledge, to figure out how to run it like a business. So then you take the corporate structures of other companies and you say, okay, for council, we're going to have a sales and marketing team. We're going to have an events team. We're going to have this and this and that. And so to answer your question, I definitely think the alumni has grown, and I maybe I'm a bit biased because I'm coming out of the program, but I think it's among the best for sure, because
Yeah.
there's
Yeah. No,
so
I agree.
many individuals. And you know what, Matt, too, which is interesting to me, there's so many individuals, but it's not like everyone is in the same aspect within the sport industry. Everybody kind of has their own branch and their own specialties, and that's what I find really interesting and unique.
Yeah, it's a great point. And that was kind of, what I think one of the biggest advantages now is just the growth of the industry and the opportunities that are out there, for students. And I think by connecting alumni, you become aware of, roles that, you never really thought of. And even on the brand side of things, right? There's a lot of great jobs with, still, working in sport, right? Managing, I know there's a few alumni that I work with every day that are on the brand side of the business. They're still in their role is managing sports sponsorship. They're working for TELUS. They're working for RBC. They're working for other big brands, but are still dialed in. I think, and that's the element as well. As I think as when students come in first year, they don't recognize that. But I think Brock's done a really great job of exposing students to the variety of roles that are available to them when they when they get out. So no, I think it's I think that's definitely been the biggest change I've seen as an alumni, kind of comparing when I came out of school and some of the opportunities that there are now.
And even when I was a first year student, Matt, I always thought there's only one option in professional sport. But when I learned throughout the years is that there's
Yeah,
there's not just professional sports, nonprofit, it's other um,
yeah.
organizations that you can enter into the industry. So I think I was very narrow minded, but once obviously completing the undergrad, then my I was more open minded.
Yeah. Yeah, no, for sure. And it's funny. I think every cohort, it's so topical, right? Like obviously with alumni like Kyle Dubas and the emergence of analytics to sport, right? That's kind of been you know you go around a first year seminar, right? And 8 out of 10 people are going to say they want to work in analytics, they want to work in pro sport, and I laugh because like when and I'm for sure gonna date myself, but like I went to school, I started a few years after Jerry Maguire came out, and he went around the, first year seminar, and everybody wanted to be an agent. That was just why you went to, why you took sport management for 8 out of 10. And I think of that, only one guy I know, I think I've got one of my best friends who, we started together, and he's down that path, but everybody else realized, I think, that the competition was fierce, and there was more opportunity. So I'm curious to see kind of what that next um, next wave or next craze is, for the cohort 5 years from now, what they all want to be. Sure, it'll be much different than what it is now.
Matt, I can't thank you enough for doing this. Thank you for spending time with me to share your story and insights within the industry. I really appreciate it. And I also want to say thank you for all your support within my undergraduate experience, and I guess as an alumni, as, as, as a fellow alumni as well.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it, Vince, and like I said, I've always been happy to help current students and recent grads. Obviously, have a soft spot for Badgers program there, but no, I'm excited, and like I said, it was heartfelt when I reached out. I think this is a really great example for recent grads and other students on how you set yourself apart right now when there may not be a perceived lot of opportunities to do so. So yeah, thanks for having me, man. Keep it up, and yeah, and happy to help anytime.
Thanks, Matt. And that's Matt Bennett.
Awesome.